Yo, plant-based buddies, welcome back to another educational video about fear-mongering. Fear-mongering is a great tool if you are selling something because typically people create a problem and then sell you the solution. Great tactic and great way of getting more likes and more clicks, that's for sure. But I really gets on my nerves when people are trying to sell you something based on the general public's lack of knowledge about toxicology and how things work. So let's start, and I made a little list there of chemicals that I've heard about lately. People are afraid of chemicals, okay? Whereas chemicals can mean anything. Now, I'm not there to mock or minimize that there's a lot of crap in our food nowadays. There's a lot of crap in beauty products. There's a lot of crap, phthalates and what we call forever chemicals and PFAS and all those sorts of chemicals that are in things we eat, things we consume, and things that our body does come in contact with. Now, obviously, the rates of autoimmunity, cancer, metabolic conditions, hormone dysfunction are all through the roof over the last few generations. And I suspect that that has a lot to do with these chemicals that are in our food, in our water, and in the products that we kind of put on our bodies all day long. But where we kind of misunderstand the science is when looking at the dose. Now, I talked about toxicology before, and I've already stated that the dose makes the poison. If you drink too much water, you can get hyponatremia and have a seizure and die. If you get too much iodine, you can have a phenomenon called Jod-Basedow phenomenon, where your thyroid gland gets super active and you're in hyperthyroidism. If you have too much calcium in your blood, you can develop calciphylaxis or hardening of the arteries, kidney stones, a lot of problems. So the most important thing is always to consider that too much of a good thing can be dangerous. Too little can put you at risk for deficiency, and too much for toxicity. But the issue is that certain chemicals are labeled as dangerous without considering the dose, and that's where I get a little bit of an issue. I'll give you an example with pesticides, and I think I already talked about this. The EWG labels what we call the dirty dozen, the highest, the fruits and veggies produce that has the highest pesticide exposition or content on them. You would have to eat something like 4,000 strawberries in one day to get any dose of that pesticide that would have any clinical significance. No one does that. No one eats 20 pounds of strawberries in one day, okay? If you would eat 20 pounds of strawberries, even if they're organic, you'll get some issues because that means that you're going to get probably toxicity in certain vitamins and you're going to be having deficiencies in others. So too much of a good thing is never a good thing. Now, I took a few notes here because I want to talk about things that I've heard. I've had one of my patients talk about how benzene in soda was dangerous, not knowing that you get more benzene absorption by filling up your car with gas. Okay, so I agree that soda is not healthy. I agree that benzene is not healthy. But the dose makes the poison. So do not worry about the benzene in your soda if you're not worried about gassing your car. Vitamin E. Vitamin E is an antioxidant. Vitamin, because it has the word vitamin in it, people assume that it's healthy. High dose vitamin E aka what you would get in high dose vitamin E supplementation, increases the risk for cancer. Now, vitamins can be toxic. Vitamins can lead to poor outcomes when they're taking it at high dose. The dose makes the poison. If we're talking about BHA, BHA is also a chemical that is a probable carcinogen when it's at high dose. The thing that we don't kind of consider is that regular exposure in real life doesn't put you at risk for high dose. Now, what we don't know is that maybe the accumulation of some of these chemicals over a long term might impact life later on. But what we know is that people are dying from heart disease. First killer, the top killer, not with chemical exposition. Now, like I said, don't want to minimize being exposed to chemicals, because there's a lot of crap in products that we use. It's just that people tend to scare people with dyes in our clothing, with certain chemicals in our deodorants, chemicals in our shampoo, chemicals in our soaps, chemical in our makeup, chemical in our putting my pen in my mouth like that is going to cause phthalates and endocrine disruptors being absorbed in my body, but at a dose that is so minimal that it's not really even worth talking about it. Now, like I say, some people are worried about radiation, but they're not worried about getting on a plane and flying across the country on a trip, which will provide a lot more radiation than anything that coming from your cell phone, right? So I don't want to minimize that people get worried about exposure to chemicals. I just want to make sure that people take it in a context of dose. And if you're looking at science of toxicology, the dose is equal to the concentration that you're exposed to over time. So the exposure intensity and the exposure level over time. How long and what's the dose? So now just keep in mind that even if something is labeled a carcinogen, it depends on the dose. Being exposed to a probable carcinogen at a dose that's lower than the level that causes cancer is unlikely to cause cancer. Taking vitamin E from food doesn't cause cancer. Vitamin E rich foods are super healthy. Taking vitamin E in a supplement form increases cancer rates, right? And I mean, at the end of the day, if we're looking at chemicals, we might as well just be scared of everything, and scared of the water we drink, and scared of the foods we eat. But just kind of keep in mind that not all of you are going to want to be scared of everything, and it's unfortunately used and abused online, usually to sell you something, right? So just kind of be careful with that. Question claims that are made in absolutes. Exposure to anything is a matter of the dose over time. And that's why I always talk about processed meats being class 1 carcinogens and red meat being class 2A carcinogens. That's true, but it's true in a dose dependent fashion. Eating 50 grams, which is a half deck of cards of meat once every few weeks is likely not to cause cancer. The dose makes the poison, but if you're eating red and processed meats over 50 to 100 grams per day, and you're doing it a few times per week, every week, over years, that compounds and might lead to increased risk. Well, not might lead, does lead to increased risk of cancer. And that's pretty irrefutable looking at the science. Just like eating one piece of broccoli once a month doesn't make you healthy, eating unhealthy food here and there doesn't make you unhealthy. It's what you're doing the majority of the time over the long term that will count. So hopefully anything anything that I'm saying here doesn't come across as fear mongering. If so, please call me out so I can give more nuances. That's the disadvantage of being online. Online, you have to have a trendy, catchy slogan or a catchy term that catches everyone's attention. And obviously, fear mongering works. That's why people that fearmonger have a lot more reach online than I do. But the dose makes the poison if you're looking at real science. Cool. I hope that helps you understand. And just kind of keep in mind that if you have a fear of chemicals, there's a big chance that unless you're using it at high dose over long term, that it is not dangerous for you. Just kind of make sure to live a balanced life, balanced physically and balanced mentally. And living in fear of chemicals is a pretty sad way to lead your life. The dose makes the poison, and the dose depends on the concentration and the exposure over time. I hope that makes sense. Cool. All right. Peace out.